Okay, I think we're live.
Excellent. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Umar Hussein. Inshallah, I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour. More importantly, inshallah, we have with ourselves Sheikh Amr Jamil from the iSyllabus program. Today's topic is one that's on all of our minds, on the forefront of all of our minds, and has been since the 7th of October this year, and relates to the current situation in Gaza. And today's topic and title of today's topic is Guidance for Gaza, Seerah Answers for Difficult Times. And we're going to go straight into, inshallah, after this short introduction, as to just exactly what we're going to be looking at today. For those, obviously, of our viewers who are local to us, whether you're in Scotland or England, no doubt are fully familiar and aware of Sheikh Amr Jamil and his background. For those who have joined more internationally, inshallah, a very short introduction. Sheikh Amr holds a law degree from Strathclyde University and has travelled and spent 10 years in particular studying Islamic sciences, and 6 of those distinguished years were with scholars in the Middle East, including Syria and Yemen. But in terms of speciality, that's within the Islamic family law sector. Currently, and the more up-to-date situation is that Sheikh Amr Jamil currently is the co-director of the iSyllabus program, which is obviously the YouTube channel which we are watching. Sheikh Amr Jamil, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah Sheikh for taking your time as always. First of all, Mabruk on your recent trip to Umrah. I thought I would at least try and feel some of your enjoyment with my new haircut, but unfortunately not quite the same. Sheikh, today, of course, we are discussing the topic that's on everybody's minds, which is the current genocide that's taking place in Gaza. And without any long intro, because I don't think our viewers really need any long intro as to what's going on in Gaza, everybody's fully aware with what's going on. But more interestingly, some of the viewers might be viewing and thinking, why on earth are these guys, and why is the Sheikh directly looking into and discussing the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ when we have a genocide that's taking place? So really much of our discussion, and inshallah the next hour, is going to be about looking at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, turning to the life of the Prophet ﷺ. But maybe it's not so obvious to many of our viewers why exactly we're doing that.
Yeah, so I mean, look, as we know that the Prophet ﷺ, everyone knows this, is the best of all examples, and the Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him, and one of the things that differentiates him from every other prophet is every other prophet was sent for a specific people, for a specific time. That's why sometimes you have more than one prophet at the same time to two different peoples. A good example would be Ibrahim alayhi salam and Lut alayhi salam. Lut is the nephew of the Prophet Ibrahim, but they're sent to two different people. So the Prophet being the last of all prophets is sent rahmatan lil alameen, is sent as a mercy. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We didn't send you except as a mercy for all of mankind, for all people. So the message of the Prophet is for every time and place and circumstance. So the Quran and Sunnah, which are primary sources, they don't detail every single incident. Otherwise, you would need like an encyclopedia, to write out everything explicitly. But what it does is it gives you enough information for us to then derive answers to new situations which maybe didn't occur at the time of the Prophet, but the principles are the same, the patterns are similar. So when we look at the Prophet ﷺ's life, like one of the things that sometimes Christians bring up is, oh well, Jesus was a prophet of peace, because he turned the other cheek, and he never got involved in wars or anything like that, whereas the Prophet Muhammad, he went to war. And the difference is that, again, Isa alayhi salam is sent for a specific purpose, whereas the Prophet sent for all of mankind. So he is, if he'd never gone to war, for example, we would not know what are the ethics of war. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts him in different, like for example, Isa alayhi salam never got married, right? But the Prophet did. So then we have guidance when it comes to marital life. Isa alayhi salam didn't have children, the Prophet did. So now we see the role of a father, the role of a grandfather. You see, so the Prophet's playing different roles. He's a friend, he's a companion, he's a leader, he's a political leader, he's a military leader, he's a spiritual leader. He's a family man. He's a married man. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a parent. So because he's playing all these different roles, it means that whenever we want guidance, in any particular aspect of life, lo and behold, we can find, some aspect of the Prophet's life that sheds light on it. So the Seerah is really the crux. This is the place we're supposed to be going back to over and over again, because this is where the answers are. You see, in some situations, you can have a theory. Academics are good at this. They might have a theory of war or a theory of this or a theory of that, but it might just be hypothetical. Whereas when you see a actual live event, something that actually happened in history, the human aspect of it, where, for example, the Battle of Uhud, when the Muslims lost because of 40 archers. So you see the human element, how humans behave in different situations and what consequences they have. So when we look at the Seerah, it's a very human story. And the companions are human beings, and they get things right, they get things wrong. But all of that gives us guidance. So in times like these, where people obviously are very hurt, very, very shocked, I wouldn't say paralyzed, but they feel very angry and very helpless in obviously what is unfolding in front of our eyes. The genocide is really is horrific. I mean, the images are just getting too graphic to even look at. Obviously that takes a toll on the human psyche. And I think it's always important that we're not, one of the things that differentiates us is that we are believers in a next life. We believe in the unseen. If you look at Surah Baqarah, what does it start with? Alif Lam Mim, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤمنون بالغيب. So الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة. So they believe in the unseen and they establish the prayer. So right from the beginning, it's a book of guidance, and also it is fundamental to our religion to believe in the unseen. It's the first page of the Quran. So الذين يؤمنون بالغيب, so those who believe, who are the muttaqeen, who are the people of taqwa, those who believe in the unseen, ويقيمون الصلاة, and they establish the prayer, ومما رزقناهم ينفقون, and from what Allah has given them they spend. So in that we see that this idea of believing in the unseen. So what's the unseen? Well, one of the things of the unseen is the next life, the akhirah. None of us have been there. The life of the grave. So we believe in a life to come. So for example, when we see injustice, obviously we have to do our bit in playing, and trying to rectify the oppression. However, does that mean that in this world injustices don't happen? They happen. So for example, like the case of Jimmy Savile, right? He abused so many people, and he died before he got caught. So in that situation, if you didn't believe in a next life, say you're a victim and you didn't believe in a next life, you'll feel hard done by, you'll feel cheated, you'll feel that justice was never served and he got away with it, right? But as a believer, obviously you'd feel similar things, but you will know that he will not get away with it, that he will stand in God's court and he will be held accountable for every single thing that he did, which is known or unknown. So this idea, this belief in the next life, this belief in the unseen, what it does is it gives us a sense of balance, that even though we may see injustices done, we may not be able to, we may not, live to see better days. However, whoever's involved, I mean, the oppressors, the Israelis, what they're doing, that's not going to escape God's court. Every
No.
atrocity, whether we know about it or not, that's been recorded, right, by the angels. That's all there. And so the person they're abusing or oppressing, there's going to be a day when those two people will come face to face in the next life, and justice will be done to, as the Quran says, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it in the next life. Whoever does an atom's weight of bad will see it. So there's going to be complete justice. So we have to keep that at the back of our minds, that look, we're human beings, we're deficient in ourselves, we're weak. We might get things right, we might get things wrong, we might do some justice here, we might, do some injustice there. But at the end of the day, there's going to be full accountability for absolutely everything. And God is watching everything that's happening. It's happening with God's will, it's happening with God's knowledge. But for man to be completely free, God has got to allow people to have free will. And free will, because of free will, because you can't hold somebody to account if they don't have free will. They don't have choice then. They don't have any choice. But if you say, well, okay, I'll give you free will to do right or wrong, but then you're accountable, that entails that one person might beat up another person unjustly, right? So in the moment, yes, there is injustice because free will is necessary. However, at the end of it, after that, say that experiment's over, you're going to say, right, why did you hit that guy? You're going to then take that person to task. So it's this will happen. Injustice will be alleviated in the next life. So I think that's the kind of thing that we as believers have to remind ourselves, that in the first page of Surah Baqarah, as the Quran begins, it says that we believe in the unseen, and the unseen is Akhirah. And if you look at the Quran, especially the Makkah surahs, it's constantly talking about the next life, the Akhirah. It's constantly talking about paradise and hellfire. It's constantly bringing our focus away from this world and to the next world. And this world, when we read about in the Quran, is always described as a delusion. It's always described as something lowly. It's something temporary. And so, God is speaking to us. God is telling us, look, this life is very short. It's very, very short. And what's more important is the life to come. And and everything that these people are going through in Gaza, and may Allah help them. Everything they're going through is paving the way for them in the next life. It's paving the way for paradise for them in the next life. If we know in the hadith that for every prickling of a thorn, some of your sins are wiped out, then obviously if you're getting bombs dropped on you unjustly, then you can imagine what recompense there'll be for going through something like that.
No doubt. I mean, you touched upon, just because of the question, I know this may go slightly off topic, but we may as well deal with this. This is something that's been coming up quite regularly.
Yeah.
Why does God just allow what's happening to happen? Why can he not just stop it? This seems to be a common theme, again, question that's arising. But likewise, no doubt the same thing would have been experienced by Rasulullah ﷺ during his time, where the companions would be saying, well, why is Allah's help not coming right now? Can we maybe touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing to think would be, well, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the Prophet to suffer then? Why did he allow the companions to suffer? Why did he not just give them victory in every battle? Why did they lose Uhud? So again, the answers are all there. See, we ask these questions because we become disconnected from the Seerah. The Seerah staring us in the face. The stories in the Quran are there as well. So we're not a special category of people, right? The word is entitled. We're not entitled to have a great life. So it's okay for all the people in the past to have difficulties. It's okay for every prophet to have gone through difficulty. It's okay for all the companions to have gone through difficulty. But for some reason, we should be exempt from that, and we should have a great life, and not have any difficulties, and at the same time get paradise as well. It doesn't work like that. So the for again for God to be just, he's got to give man choice. If he gives man choice, then you have to have the free will to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Some human beings will choose the right way. Some human beings will choose the wrong way. Those who choose the wrong way, often their actions have an implication on other people, right? For example, not an extreme example, but let's just take a simple example. A parent shouting at the child unjustly, right? So obviously, I'm just taking as an example, but it's an example of injustice, right? Because the child is innocent. So you could say, well, why is God not protecting that child from that abuse from that parent, right? Could God do that? Yes, he could. But then there's no test, there's no way of knowing who's, and this is what the Quran says, لِنَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to test you, to see who is, better in action. So you would never then know, and there'd be no test basically. But by allowing that parent free choice, the parent can either shout or they can control themselves. That free action has an implication on an innocent, right? And that will obviously be, that parent will be held accountable because they're an adult. So that's a very simple, small example. You can just amplify that now, to employment, to marriages, to running a country. Why is God not protecting, Pakistan from corruption? Why is God not, doing this? Why is God not allowing cancer to spread? Why did God not stop COVID? You can go on and on and on, but in the life of the Prophet, the Prophet's not saying that. The Prophet's not saying, God, why are you doing this? And the best example for us in terms of approach is when his son dies, Ibrahim, and the Prophet's shedding tears, and the companion says, Ya Rasulullah, are you displeased with what God has chosen, has decreed? And he says that no, we do not question God's decree, but we are sad. I'm sad at losing my child. I'm a human being, right? So we have these emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad, right? That's the human side of us. But and in the hadith it says very clearly, but we do not say anything which is dispreasurable to God, right? So the correct approach is, you have those human emotions. We're human beings. No human can watch what's happening and not be moved unless there's something wrong with you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean we lose the plot. It doesn't mean we start. One of the criticisms of obviously Israelis is that they were an oppressed people, obviously by the Nazis, but then they've just become the oppressors. So we have ethics, we have rules, we have boundaries. We are bound by sacred law. We don't just lose the plot just because we're feeling angry. We respond appropriately. So we do what we have to do, but we stick to a certain code of conduct. So if you're interacting with people on social media, whatever, you don't start swearing at people. Doesn't matter how angry you feel, you can absolutely express yourself, but you don't. There's certain conduct as a believer that we maintain. So I think that's important for people to understand, that if you start asking questions like that, well, why did God let my mum die? Why did I get this disease? Why did I lose my job? It's endless,
We know where to draw the line.
Yeah.
Can I just ask then, because for most of us who have been engaging in watching online talks, seminars, courses or much of the content that's out there from our Muslim leadership and scholars. I personally was surprised to see, subhanAllah, so much of the content. The first thing that seemed to happen was reverting back to the Seerah. At least in so many of the lectures I was on, it's a common theme and common thread coming out of much of what the scholars are saying is we have to turn back to the books. Now, Sheikh, tell us, when you then turn back to the books and when you look back at the Seerah of the life of Rasulullah, what's the starting point there? Is there a particular passage? Is there particular events, or really is there lessons to be learned even from early on?
So I mean, the Prophet's life is divided, you could say, or into two parts after he gets the message at the age of 40. So this generally the Makkah period and the Medina period.
Yeah.
The Makkah period is really, I think, where a lot of the lessons lie. And that's a very difficult period, because that's the beginning, isn't it? When you're laying the foundation for something.
Yeah.
And I think we can take a lot from it. In Medina, it's slightly different, because now you're kind of you've got a bit of a power base, and you're able to now fight back and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Makkah period, the companions of in a very weakened state, the power is all with the Quraysh. So if you look at the obviously Palestinian situation, it's very much like that. All the power is with one side. They have nuclear weapons. They have the US backing them up with weaponry, with money. They have got a huge propaganda machine. They've got God knows how many companies backing them. So the power's all with them. The Palestinians, are in a weak state. They don't have the support. They don't have the money. They don't have infrastructure. So it does, in those kind of situations, you can go back to the Seerah and see, well, the Prophet also went through that phase where he didn't have much. He had a small group of people. He was outnumbered. He's outpowered. What's happening, especially with the Israeli kind of propaganda machine. As you see, the lobby politicians in the countries which they know matter. So you can get to a situation where something as common sense as ceasefire can be vetoed in the UN. There's obviously a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to maneuver that. So you find that since this the 7th of October, Israel's been very busy spending a lot of money trying to get as many allies on their side, to try and drown out any pro-Palestinian voices. So they've tried their best. By these are hate marches. The River to Seas calling for extermination, and the list goes on and on and on. And if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, when he's in Makkah, what are the Quraysh doing? The Quraysh got all the power, but also the Quraysh, when other people come on the pilgrimage, other tribes, they go to them and say, by the way, there's this guy called Muhammad, don't listen to him. He's like this, he's a liar, he's did it. So they're trying to stop any support, external support, getting to him. So it's very similar. They're trying to cut out all external support, isolate them. I mean, if it wasn't for social media, if you back in the 80s and all you had is the BBC and all the rest of it, people just wouldn't be aware. It's just that now people have phones and they can give an alternative perspective, which they couldn't do before. A lot of people would have just been, not realizing what's happening. So when you go back to the Seerah, you see that, okay, the Prophet went through that period as well, when all sorts of lies are being spread about him. The propaganda machine is hard at work, day in, day out, working against him. He's in a weakened state. He's got, a few numbers. He's outnumbered. He's outpowered, outmoneyed, out everything. But what does he do? He just perseveres. He keeps going. He keeps going. He perseveres. All sorts of oppression starts to take place. They try different techniques. See, this is the thing. If you look at all these oppressive regimes and stuff, they just try different techniques. So it's okay. Let's try a peace accord at the same time. Let's keep expanding settlements and so on. So they're just trying different things. Now it's just the whole justification as well. Israel needs to defend itself. So
Yeah.
under that banner, and if you look at every single person on that side, they keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. They're trying to drum this in to people's minds that Israel has a right to defend themselves, which means they can justify everything they're doing. And then if you say, well, you're killing civilians, you're killing children, you're targeting hospitals, all, but they use them as human shields. They build tunnels below them, blah, blah, blah. So you can keep justifying. And so, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the same thing's happening. So they first start torturing the weakest amongst them, the ones that don't have any protection from any tribe. And the Prophet, he's helpless. He can't do anything. We know the story of Yasser and Sumayya, the first woman to be martyred by Abu Jahl. He struck a spear through her private parts, and then her husband, as Yasser, was killed. We know the story of Bilal. He was put in the rock, and in a hot day, he was tortured. So the Prophet, his hands are tied. He can't help these people. They don't have a tribe protect them, but he's protected because he's from Banu Hashim and they can't touch him because of the tribal system. So he's got to watch basically people that are believing him, and now they're paying the price for it, sometimes with their lives. So you can imagine how that would have been for the Prophet, how emotionally he would have felt seeing that, and unable to do anything apart from tell them, look, have sabr, because paradise is waiting for them.
We'll come on to just exactly that, right? Just exactly what the Prophet's response was. But just to put into perspective, because a lot of our viewers, people watching, are going to be thinking that this is the first time in my life where I can't watch content. I cry myself to sleep because I see a young child or I see a mother who's now helpless. During my working day, I am not able to operate fully the way I used to. I'm not able to go out and enjoy myself the way I used to, because actually the back of my mind is that all the time. So we're looking at the Seerah, and you're talking about this very point. Now we're talking about the leader of our ummah, whose love for us is far beyond what we can have for anybody that we're watching. As much as, of course, we love our brothers and sisters anywhere in the world, obviously in comparison to what Rasulullah had the love for the people that were with him, believing him. And now, as you say, he's watching them being persecuted. And similarly, in our position, he can't do anything. His hands are tied. So what lesson, Sheikh, then do we derive from how Rasulullah reacted, or how he acted, or what did he turn to? What was his coping mechanisms?
So I think there's a couple of things. The first thing is, if you look at that statement, when he told the family of Yasser, Ya ala Yasser, have sabr, because maw'idukum al-jannah, your destination is paradise. So he's looking at the end goal. Like, what is the end goal? Because remember, this life, I mean, how long can you live? 80, 90, 100. You will die one day. It's not going to go on forever. So it is not. It's a pit stop. It's a temporary place before we move on. So he's looking at, look, the akhirah is more important than this life. What happens in this life? I mean, look, Abu Jahl, he lived his life. He died, right? Sumayya lived her life and died. We know where Sumayya is, right? And we kind of know where Abu Jahl is as well. So, those 50, 60, 70 years or whatever it was, how much food can you eat? How much entertainment can you have? How much can you, whatever, it comes to an end at some point. So the next life is more important than this life. And so even those who died in those circumstances or were tortured, like I said, there's a recompense. It's nothing's for nothing. There is total there is total justice. And so I think the focus again for the Prophet with these companions is, look, don't look at the here and now. It's about what is the end goal, right? What is the end goal? And then obviously other companions, there's that famous Khabab who comes to the Prophet and complains about, the torture. And the Prophet says, look, people in the past were sawn in half right? But it didn't stop them from sticking to what they believe in or the truth. So again, the call is to patience. But our patience, is not. If you didn't believe in the next life, then it's different. You'd
Yeah.
think, well, why? But the thing is, when you believe, well, there's a recompense. This sabr is not for nothing. There is something amazing waiting for me for this. That's what you should be looking at. I mean, it's quite interesting how people who don't even believe in a next life, because they believe in climate change, for example, they will go to prison for what they believe. They'll stand up for what they believe, and they'll even get themselves arrested, risk their careers, lots of things, just because they believe that that's the right thing to do. So, and that's and there's no like kind of benefit. There's no worldly benefit for that, and that's all they believe in. But if you believe that this is not the place I'm, for forever, it's I have another destination where I'm going to get to. So you think, well, what's going to benefit me in that destination and not here? So I think that is probably one of the key mindsets that the Prophet had. The Quran, again, it's a very Quranic viewpoint, focusing on the next life. If you look at all the surahs that we read all the time, akhirah, 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 always about the akhirah. So that is obviously for us, and difficulties don't last. There are difficult periods in your life. It goes up and it goes down, but it doesn't always remain the same. So there'll be good days in your life, there'll be bad days in your life. When you have good days, you're supposed to be grateful. When you have bad days, you're supposed to be patient. So I think that that's probably the way we need to be looking at this whole event. Obviously, it's the brutality, it's
Yeah.
the extent of it, which is just so shocking at a human level. Which is why so many non-Muslims who don't believe in God, don't believe in anything, but they're just like, this is not right. This is wrong.
Yeah.
This should not be happening. But as believers, we have a framework which helps us put things in perspective. When things are bad, when things are hard in life, that's where we know how to get through those difficult periods. If you look at the Prophet, I mean, obviously things get harder and harder as that Makkah period progresses. Gets to a point where some of them have to emigrate. They have to leave. They have to leave their land. They go to Abyssinia. We know that the Palestinians, lots of them had to flee. In the Nakba in 1948. To leave, and there's a longing to come back. Then we get to the point where they get to the point that they boycott the Muslims. They say, right, okay, we're just going to boycott. We're not going to buy and sell. And so all of Banu Hashim, all the whole tribe is boycotted. And so again, all of the Quraysh agreed to that cruel act, right? That we're going to boycott them. We're not going to give them anything. We're going to, and then think about what happened in Gaza. We'll cut off the water. We'll cut off the electricity. We'll cut off we were going to just do the exact same, because what happens with the Prophet in the boycott, some of them are reduced to eating leaves. They run out of food. They're starving to death. So this is something which is, we see the Prophet went through that period also, when children at night were crying out of hunger, right? So the children were suffering. Again, it's collective punishment. So because not all of them, not even all of Bani Hashim was Muslim, but because the Prophet was amongst them, they said, right, because of him, we're going to punish everyone. So it's the same thing. Like, okay, if you say, well, Hamas did the same thing, well, we're going to punish everyone anyway. It's collective punishment. So the same thing is happening. If you start examining the Seerah, you can see what happened. And then did it only go on for, how long has this been going on? 2 months or something? Right,
2 months.
Right, 2 months. Right, that went on for 18 months. So it wasn't a boycott for like 2 months or 3 months. It went on for a significant period of time. But eventually it comes to an end. It doesn't last. There's a hard time, but it comes to an end. How does it come to an end? It comes to an end when public opinion turns against it. That's
Mm.
basically what happened. So it got to a point where the decent people, the people that have got a bit of humanity at heart, they're like, look, this is wrong, right?
Yeah.
People, they're suffering, we're eating. This is wrong. This can't be right. So this is why even in Israel before the 7th of October, um, as we're against Zionism, not Jewish people, because
Absolutely.
not
Yes.
all Jews are Zionists. Um,
Mm.
they're good people. They're decent people like Norman Finkelstein and other people who are like,
Yeah.
this is wrong. This is wrong, right? How can it be that we are living in the same land, we have water, we have all these luxuries, and people are like starving to death?
Yeah.
So there were good people amongst the Quraysh, just based on humanity, that started to say, look, this is not right. And then obviously over a period of time, it builds, it builds, it builds. When it gets to a critical mass of people, they just put so much pressure on
Yeah.
the Quraysh that they had to abandon it. So again, that's a lesson for us that we should not let the momentum go down. We shouldn't just become accustomed to this. If this goes on for months and months,
Yeah.
of course we've got to get on with life. We've got to do our, other duties, because God is not saying
Of course.
put everything on pause and sort this out. That we've not been asked to do that. We've been asked,
Mhm.
okay, do your bit, but you have to get on with your life. You still have to be a spouse. You have to be a good spouse. You have to be a good parent to your child. You have to be a good son or whatever. You have to be a good person at work. Do all your other duties of life that you need to do. But you don't forget about this issue. You make dua, of course. You obviously give charity, but also part of it is raising awareness, becoming
Mm.
educated ourselves, and raising awareness, which people, to be fair, have done a lot of. I mean, you probably heard Starbucks has, announced they've made a loss. That didn't happen out of a vacuum. That happened because
I,
people took action.
I tell you what, today's the first day as I was in the supermarket just before we came on. I was walking past, going to get my copy of the Fanta. It's Aldi's own version, and I looked and I seen Diet Coke for the first time was down at like £5 something. Now I don't know whether that's just a coincidence or some sort of sales coming up, but I was a wee bit taken aback because normally the same case is around about £8. And it's the first time ever that I've been going to the shops and seen a reduction. I mean, that's just one example, right? We hear of so many companies out there, but Starbucks primarily. But before coming back to that point, just if I can touch upon one of the things more, because the topic is a difficult one and the discussion is a difficult one, but just touching upon some light, um, or maybe a positive note. For the first time, as all of this happened, I remember saying to some of my colleagues, whilst growing up, this problem has always been here, and whilst I was attending protests, this has always been an issue. But it very much felt like a you guys problem. This is a you're Muslim or Arab, and this you guys need to deal with this. The first time in my life, anyway, where I've gone to a protest and been surrounded by predominantly non-Muslims,
Yeah.
um, or in actual fact seeing videos coming out from Israel itself, from the Jewish people community protesting outside their courts and outside their parliament, just people lined up on the street, and they're thousands, not just a small number, because they don't agree with the extreme, obviously tactics employed by the government.
Yeah.
And also just the amount of Jewish voices for peace, all of these activist groups now that are coming, the presence that is online, the presence that is coming from public opinion, even in my own work in the legal field, just what I'm experiencing. It's the first time that people that weren't even interested in this topic before are now stopping and saying, actually, this is horrific, this needs to stop. So the responsibility that we have that you've mentioned there about keep going, don't lose momentum. First of all, just how important is that? And second of all, that also, Sheikh, is going to be becoming difficult for people. You touched upon mentally it having an impact on people last time, and how much you still have an obligation to work on your family, work on your friends, going to see your parents, dealing with your children, and you've got at the same time in the background you're trying to raise awareness on a forum, or you're trying to take out your Saturday and go to a protest. How important is that role in doing that, Sheikh? And also, is there an element to all of this whereby we're also being tested, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also, on one view, ask, well, how did you respond? Did you just get on with life and ignore the whole situation, or was there an element of you responding?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, whenever there's a difficulty, let's say, for example, the earthquakes last year in
Mm,
Turkey, right?
Turkey.
So, I mean, obviously, the people that are experiencing that's a test for them, but then the
Yeah.
test for other people as well. What did you do? Did you try to alleviate any of that suffering in any way you
Yeah.
can, right? So, you're right. It is a test for everyone, and to be honest, um, as you've seen with this, particularly this time with this issue, has become very divisive. So
Mm,
you've seen people just go either pro-Israel or pro-Palestine,
that's
and the
right.
people that are kind of in the middle is dwindling. It's getting less and less, because people are becoming more informed, and they're like, well, I'm with that side or with that side. The thing is, every person. So let's say it's somebody who's siding with the oppressors, right? Um, the thing is, if you're helping them in any way, even if through a tweet, you're gonna have to answer for that. And
Mm,
you have to ask yourself a question that, look, well, is it worth it? Is it worth tweeting something for whatever reason, right? When there's no benefit to you, right? Whether you tweet that or you don't tweet that, like
yeah.
in favor of Israel, it's not like you're going to go and live in Israel and benefit from that, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else, the people there are going to benefit from that. You're not benefiting in any way. You're not making any money out of it or whatever. So what benefit is there? You're basically saying I'm with you in spirit and whatever. So you will then be raised with the oppressors, even though you may have not physically done the oppression yourself. And similarly, the other side, people who took a stance and sided with the oppressed, you then go into that camp. So everything's it makes it very clear where people stand, and it's a test for their conscience that, okay, so for an Israeli citizen, it's a test of humanity that, okay, for the sake of this, living in the state, am I willing? Is it at any cost? Is it at any cost that we have to have this land at any cost? Is that so? This is a test for every single person, so that in the next life you've got no excuses.
Mm,
When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings everyone forth, it's going to say, right, it was very obvious, very blatant in your face, and which side did you take? Right, you
yeah.
went this side. So okay, that's you. You've chosen what type of person you are. So I think part of it is it's making it very clear there's no excuses after this. Um, and I think if you look at the seerah of the Prophet doesn't look at the torture and just sit down and cry,
Mm,
for the rest of the day. No, he knows I've got to get on with a job. I've been given a duty by God. And what we have to always ask ourselves is, what is my duty to God? Right? I'm not in the government. I'm not a judge. I'm not whatever it is. So I'm not at that level that God's going to ask me, the way he'll ask somebody in government, right? I'm just an average person. So within my capacity, God is going to hold me accountable for my capacity, within my capacity. So within that, whatever God's asking me of that time, I have to ask, what is God asking of me? Right? God is asking, right? Um, be with justice, be a good person, good akhlaq, educate people, educate yourself. You do whatever little you can do. That might be that you boycott Starbucks, whatever. Um, but at the same time, I'm not supposed to just sit here and just put my head down and just become paralyzed. I've got to get on with my other duties. My children, who are innocent young children, that's a duty God has put in my shoulders. I've still got to get on and parent them, right?
mm,
I'm an elderly mother. I've still got duties towards her. I've
yeah.
got students to teach. I've got duty towards them.
Right.
So, you whatever capacity you're in, you have to still fulfill all your other duties. That's what the Prophet's doing. He doesn't stop, because of what's happening. He doesn't go home and shut down and have and say to Khadija, I can't talk to you now because I'm too depressed, right? He's still got to go home and be a husband. He's still got to bring up his daughters. He's still got to be good to his relatives. He's still got to get on with propagating the faith, doing all the things that he's supposed to do. So you have to look at what is God asking of me, right? And am I doing that? Yes, I'm doing that. Alhamdulillah. If people are, and I've seen them, that they've been active in their own way, sharing things, going to protests, they're raising awareness, they're in their own capacity, boycotting things and, encouraging other people, educating other people, then making dua, they're, giving charity. They're doing their role. They're doing what they can.
Is it maybe an important point to mention at this point that actions are but by your intentions, and the way in which you make your intention can be far greater than even the way in which we're talking about. So we're talking about protests, we're talking about online posting, we're talking about speaking with colleagues, we're speaking about raising awareness. You might think actually you don't fall into any of those categories, but linking back with the Seerah, Sheikh, you mentioned how it got to a point where even the good people at the time of Rasulullah had to stop and think, but that man Muhammad, he's not caused anybody harm. His character's been great for all the time that we knew him. And you know what? He was never harmed us, never done wrong by us. And yet look at what we're doing to him, look at what we're doing to the people that are around him. So and this is me just thinking off the top of my head, Sheikh, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we link that today, Hamas has been portrayed as this group of people, a sect of Islam, a sect of Muslims who are, and essentially a group of people that have a particular type of philosophy who need to be eradicated, who we need to get rid of. If we are going about our daily lives as Muslim and Joe that lives next to us, and if we've got the right intention that I need to show the people that I live around, I need to show my work colleagues, I need to show the people in the supermarket that actually we're not the way in which Hamas are being portrayed or these extremists are being portrayed, then we may help in breaking down this narrative that the Israeli propaganda machine is trying to put down the throat of people. Because when we're talking about trying to deal with the bigger issue and the bigger picture, maybe one way of doing that is by even just thinking, right, I need to fix myself, and am I closely following the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Do I hand in now and then something to my neighbours in terms of some of my leftover food? Do I go out my way to help somebody during the week at work? Whatever it may be. And not realizing that in actual fact, if your intention is actually I'm trying to show the world what we as Muslims really are for, and we're not the way in which the Israeli propaganda machine makes us out, then you can actually play your part in many ways that many more than what we just talk about.
This is exactly what happened to the Prophet. Remember, they were trying to I mean, the word now dehumanize, isn't it? But I mean, there was character assassination. So they were trying to make up, oh, he's a sorcerer, oh, he's a madman, oh, he's a poet, oh, he's this, oh, he's that, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's breaking up families. So he was up against propaganda, which is exactly what's happening now. There's propaganda there, right? But again, he doesn't have the machinery. The machinery is on the other side. The money, the power is on the other side, which is what is happening now, because you've seen social media accounts, all these pro-Israeli, it looks like bots to me. They're just popping up everywhere. Anything that you say against Israel, they're just coming out. So, they're obviously, organized in doing that. Same way that it was organized against the Prophet ﷺ. But like you said, what he focused on is what is in his control. He wasn't in control of the propaganda machine, so he can't fight them with propaganda. What could he actually do? It was, first and foremost, as you said, it was his character, his conduct. Through his conduct, right? People, he still kept winning people over. It's that incident where I've forgotten the companion's name, but he's a poet, and he comes to Makkah and he's told, by the way, there's this guy, don't listen to him, put cotton wool in your ears or whatever. And so he kind of says, okay, thanks for the heads up. And at one point he's like, okay, I'm not going to listen to it. And then he thinks, I'm not an idiot, right? I've got a brain. I'm a poet. Let me just listen to see what this guy's talking about. And so, he opens his ears, listens to him, and then obviously from that becomes Muslim. So it's like you said, like, so this thing exploded, right? And people are like, well, maybe they weren't informed. What is going on here? What's happening? Why are all these people dying? Let me look into this. You see, and when they looked into it, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is terrible. And as you know, some people have become Muslim through that, just by looking at what's happening to these Palestinians, and then these Palestinians are just, seeing their faith, that these people got nothing, right? Yet they can still, how are they powering through? What kind of power is this? And then they're like, well, let me look into this religion. So, it's the same thing getting played out, that despite all the power, despite all the propaganda, despite all the aid, the money, everything that they're throwing at this, right? Despite everything, the opposition is growing. The people are saying, no, 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 but this is not right. That doesn't add up. These are lies. Hold on a second. 1 minute you said that, then you're saying that. Now you're saying, oh, that they're is this, and hold on a second. I don't believe this anymore. So the lies are starting to become exposed. People are starting to see, and so it's the same thing that you see in the Seerah, which happens again. People start seeing through it. Eventually, people start saying, well, hold on a second, but there's nothing wrong with what he's saying. And he's calling towards good. When they go to Abyssinia, and they obviously send a delegation to try and turn the king, Najashi, against the Muslims, he says, well, I need to listen to them. And they say, look, he goes, what's your message? Well, we were a people that we used to devour each other and this and that. This is what we were like. We're like animals. But then a man came, said he's a messenger of God. He told us not to fornicate, told us not to drink, told us not to oppress one another. And he's like, oh, hold on a second. Then what does the Qurayshi guy say? Oh, but you know what they say about Jesus is terrible. I can't even say it. I can't even bring myself to say it. It's so bad, right? So again, you see, so trying every dirty trick under the book, right? So then he goes back, okay, so what do you say about Jesus? And he says, well, we see Jesus is a prophet of Allah, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, well, that's not that much different from what we believe. You see, so reasonable human beings, which there are many of in the world, if you talk to them, if you educate them, if you just show them black and white, they can usually see that what's right and what's wrong. So I think, again, like I said, it is the Seerah. When we go back to the Seerah and we look at those events, I think the problem sometimes is that we read the Seerah as a story which happened a long time ago, and we don't connect the dots to our current situation. But if you can unlock that, if you're able to look at the Seerah, look at your situation, whether it's a personal situation or something happening at the Ummah level, you actually see, hold on a second, there's a lot of similarities here, right? And okay, well, what was happening then? How did they deal with it? How did they come out of this? And that then gives us, an idea of how we should be maybe looking at things, and how we should kind of, not strategize, but basically how we should be dealing
Responding.
Responding, yeah.
No doubt. For our viewers who are maybe just joined us, you are listening to iSyllabus Live, Sheikh Ahmed Jamil. Today's topic is guidance for Gaza and Seerah answers for difficult times. And we've we've looked at different aspects of the life of Rasulullah Sallallahu, and Sheikh Ahmed's broken down some of the Seerah of exactly two different periods, Meccan period and Medina period, and just exactly where some of the tragedies that we're seeing, some of the very, very horrific times that we're seeing were also experienced by the Prophet ﷺ and his companions at that time, and how Rasulullah ﷺ responded, but also how he had to carry on with his life, and which avenues were effectively taken by the Muslims at that time in order to cope, in order to deal with those events that were unfolding. Sheikh, we have been talking for about an hour and 5 minutes, and there's no time cap, but really, I just wanted to know, are there any other specific aspects of the Seerah, any other events when it comes to the Seerah of Rasulullah that when we think about Gaza today, that really we should be picking up on? Is there anything else specific, or could be a mindset of the Prophet or something specific that he increased in during hard times, something specific that he increased in, the companions began to do? Is there anything else more specific that you wish to touch upon?
I think, we've covered most of the points. I think probably maybe of note, we can maybe mention is, although this happens later in the Prophet's life, is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, because the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, happens at a point where the Muslims are on the ascension, but they make a treaty which on the surface looks like they're compromising. On the surface, it looks as if they're coming out worse from the agreement. And the companions find it very difficult to accept that, because they're like, hold on a second, we're on the truth. Why should we back down? Why should we give in? When the truth is with us. But the Prophet ﷺ, again, he's wise. Again, you see, what you see is he's looking at the end goal. He's not looking at right now. He's not short-sighted. He's looking at, well, hold on. Yes, the way it looks to you in the short term, maybe it looks as if we're conceding. But in the long term, this is going to benefit us. So the Prophet's always looking long term, not short term. And that's what we've always got to think as well. This is a long process. It's been going on for a long time. 75, 80 years. This is not something new. It's been going on for a long time. There's reasons why, this happened in the first place, right? Which we can't obviously not time to go into it, but there's obviously, this could only have happened because of a weakness that was within us as Muslims that got to this stage, right? This has been going on for a long time, and this is not going to be resolved overnight. So this is a long process, and I mean, the Israelis are dug in for a long process. They've had a very long look at this, and they're like, okay, we just need to kind of keep dwindling, keep increasing the settlements, keep ignoring the UN, keep increasing the settlements, and just dwindle the Palestinians to a point where it becomes untenable for them to live. They just make life difficult, wear them down, exhaust them psychologically, exhaust them physically, until they just give up, right? Now, obviously, we can see very, very clearly in Gaza, it's becoming clear, they said, no, leave the north, go to the south, right? Because there's going to be a lot of fighting now they're going to the south, they're bombing the south. They're going to make it so bad that it will become unlivable.
Unbearable,
right? So you can see they're in a long strategy. Al-Aqsa is another example, where for years they've been, causing problems on and off. They let Jewish settlers come in and cause problems, fighting and all that kind of stuff. Again, you see this as a strategy that we're just going to keep pushing. Eventually, we will just take over. So there's this kind of long-term strategy that they've got. Obviously, the politics of it, lobbying, etc. And it's very obvious. You can see it now. The propaganda, like, keep saying the same stuff over and over again. Keep pushing your narrative. Get in everywhere. Get on every news outlet. Make sure your narrative is there. If anyone says anything on social media, close them down. So they're in it for the long term, right? To change, as that phrase was, when the Battle of Minds, or whatever it was, the phrase used to use. So it's a battle for the minds, right? So basically, it's a long term strategy they've got, and we've got to realize, although this is intense right now, this is a long term thing, right? You've got to change the narrative in people's. You've got to keep at it. You've got to keep. Whenever their narrative comes out, you've got to counter it with ours, and keep pushing it. So it's going to be a constant thing. Maybe not as intense in the future, but it'll be like a constant, there in the background, kind of just keep working away at it. So the problem in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, on the surface, what looks like a compromise, but as the companions find it very difficult. These are not like lightweights. Like Omar is they're major, but they can't see it. They're like, well, we were compromising, but as they return from the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, "Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina." We've granted you a victory. So the Prophet's getting revelation that that was a victory. Hudaybiyah was a victory. And if you look at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, during that period, I think more people become Muslim than they did before that. So it actually was a victory, because when the treaty gets broken, at that point, that's when they take back Makkah, and at that point you've got 100,000 companions.
Yeah.
And basically they just walk in because it's just numbers. Just numbers. Yeah. There's no war. They just walk in because of just sheer numbers. The Makkans know the game's up. So when you look back in hindsight, yes, it actually was a victory. But at the time, the people couldn't see it. So again, when it comes to these things, sometimes you've got to pick battles. Which ones can we win? Which ones can we not win? And this is where obviously we've got to become politically astute. And basically realize this is a long-term thing. This is going to take time, to get to like that. I was saying about the boycott thing, get to a critical mass where it just becomes untenable for countries to continue supporting this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the first time that really Spain's been very vocal, for example. They've come out and criticised, and exactly. You have to say, we're absolutely, I mean, when would you have thought? Would you have thought before 7th of October that we were going to see that?
I mean, Macron, France, he told Israel, you need to stop killing babies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you would never have thought.
No, absolutely not.
Say stuff like that. So,
and I don't know how much you watch football, Sheikh, but actually a lot of, even in the Spanish football leagues, you've got stadiums of, you're talking 50, 60,000 people chanting for Palestine. I mean, it's some scenes that you'd never thought you'd see. Hence why the Spanish government's had a lot of pressure because of the public opinion in Spain, which obviously forced the leadership to really come to say and take the view and stance that it's taken. So,
Celtic started that a long time ago.
I have to agree with that. Actually.
Which you've got to give them credit for,
No doubt about it. Okay, really, for our viewers, Jazakallah for joining us. I've been joined with Sheikh Hamad Jamil, and there's been an insight into the situation in Gaza via the Seerah, and looking for answers in the Seerah and turning to answers in the Seerah. For anybody interested or has been inspired to now, after tonight, take a hard look at the Seerah, to go back to revisit the Seerah. If you've never even maybe studied the Seerah and you think, well, actually, this might be a good time to actually get to learn the Seerah, the Nice Syllabus On Demand channel has now for the first time released and made available Seerah courses that were taught by Sheikh Hamad Jamil and Sheikh Ridwan Muhammad, both parts, the Meccan period and the Medina period. And it's very clear when you go onto the website how you'd be able to access those and how you can access that. And you can view that and learn the Seerah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at your own leisure via online after you have access. Sheikh, is there anything about the Seerah that's online, that's on demand, that you'd like to make comment about?
So what you were mentioning there, this was we a little while ago, me and Sheikh Ridwan, we taught. I mean, I did the Makkah period, and Sheikh Ridwan did the Medina period, and we called it Seerah Reimagined. And what we tried to do was, again, like I was saying, a lot of times we kind of just read the story as like a story, but fail to connect it and make it relevant to our lives. And the idea that we had was, let's look at the Seerah, not getting into all the nitty-gritty details, because there's lots of books about that, but let's try and look at events and see how does that relate to us now. What lessons, like the stuff we've been talking about, like the boycott, and linking it to how the situation we're in now. So it was about taking those vital events in the Makkah period, for example, and then analyzing them, and then saying, okay, like, this is what's happening, this is what the Prophet's doing. What lessons do we derive from that in our practical, in my life, your life? How do we now derive inspiration from the Seerah and get those kind of answers, or get that guidance that we can take? Because otherwise the Seerah, I think the feeling was that often we're kind of disconnected. It's like the Prophet's this kind of mystical figure. We know he's the best of creation. He's a perfect human being, but we can't really relate to him. because he's up there and we're down here kind of thing, but it was all about making the Prophet relatable to every type of Muslim, that look, he's our example. He's supposed to be the one we're supposed to turn to. So, okay, he's a human being. He's going through these life events. How's he doing it? How's he dealing with this? What is it that got him through, right? Those periods. What's he doing in Makkah when things are against him? What is he doing in Medina when he's got to now deal with other communities? Because obviously there's the Jewish tribes in Medina. What happens when treaties get broken? What happens when you have to go to war? What's the ethics? What was allowed, what wasn't allowed? So all of those things, the attempt was to try and almost like bring the Seerah alive, and to some to degree, to obviously the best of our abilities. But so I did the Makkah period, and Sheikh Ridwan did the Medina period, and we're releasing it now as an on-demand course because we think it's really relevant, in the current climate, and also just generally is relevant. Even if this wasn't happening, it'd be relevant as well.
No doubt about it. So there you have it. It's Seerah on demand. It's there. It's available for you to go and access, inshallah. But as Sheikh said, whether you're linking it to Palestine or not, it's clearly, even in general, the times that we're in, extremely important to have at the forefront of our minds. Sheikh Amr Jamil, Jazakallah, as always, for giving us your insight, for giving us your knowledge and sharing with us your reflections that you've obviously spent time looking at and analysing, and we are grateful to you for that. To our viewers, Jazakallah khair for joining us and listening once again. No doubt, inshallah, please keep an eye on the website, on the social media platforms for further YouTube lives just like this. And you can go onto the iSyllabus YouTube page where you'll see further discussions just like the one that we've had tonight. And inshallah, we pray that it has been beneficial to all of you. As always, we make dua for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, not only in Gaza, all over the Muslim world, all over the world, who may be suffering any type of oppression. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberate them, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate them, whether it's in this dunya or the next. As always, guys, inshallah, we end with some verses from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. Verily, man is in grave loss. Verily, by time, man is at loss, except for those who have faith, do good, and urge each other to the truth, and urge each other to be steadfast and patient. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Amr, and to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.